For decades, the heart of global energy has been beating in a narrow waterway on the map, the Strait of Hormuz. Iran had turned this very strait into a ruthless weapon of blackmail to back the United States into a corner in negotiations. However, this supposedly invincible strategy of Tehran was crushed in a single move by the region's oil giant, Saudi Arabia. The Riyadh administration launched a staggering counteroffensive that redrew the logistics map of the Middle East overnight. A highly striking Hormuz Bypass line connecting exactly 9 global ports, even encompassing the borders of Iran's closest ally, China, was established. World trade began to pull away from the barrels of Iran's guns and anchor in this new secure network. Moreover, the Saudis did not settle for just this colossal maritime bridge. By shaking hands with the world's largest container giant, MSC, a flawless second bypass route directly connecting the Red Sea to the Gulf via land routes was also opened. Furthermore, Riyadh already holds a massive third pipeline route that pours the East's oil under the desert directly into the oceans, completely sidelining Hormuz. The picture Riyadh presents against Hormuz is quite clear. With this triple logistical siege established through waters, highways, and pipelines, Saudi Arabia is overturning all of Tehran's geopolitical plans. The balance of power in the Middle East and the Hormuz deadlock are being reshaped without firing a single bullet, thanks to Riyadh's incredible alternative route moves against Tehran. At the center of these remarkable geostrategic steps is undoubtedly the route Saudi Arabia has built upon connecting 9 ports, which has recently shocked the agenda. As of May 2026, the Saudi Ports Authority confirmed that it has directly connected the Jeddah Islamic port to the world's most critical ports. This historic announcement created the effect of an absolute earthquake in international maritime markets. Because the port of Jeddah had long ceased to be an ordinary port backed by massive multi-billion-dollar investments, the largest logistics hub of the Red Sea is now extending its arms directly into the heart of Asia and Europe. Routes no longer merely pass through Suez. They stop in Jeddah and branch out into a global network. Undoubtedly, the most striking, most strategic, and the point that wounds Iran the most on the route are the Chinese ports. Because on paper, Beijing is Tehran's largest economic and strategic ally. In fact, the Chinese side is described as the sole lifeline keeping Iran afloat, especially during this period of conflict. However, the Beijing administration has no intention of sacrificing its commercial survival to Tehran's temper tantrums. This is exactly why the ports of Xiamen, Nansha, and Bantian have settled right at the center of the new Saudi route. Chinese factories desperately need Middle Eastern oil to produce non-stop. Every day, thousands of containers full of electronics must continuously reach the Gulf market. A potential war breaking out in the Strait of Hormuz means a dagger thrust right into the heart of the Chinese economy. Therefore, the Xi regime is not risking its massive energy deficit and billions of dollars in exports. This situation proves just how much Beijing needs Saudi Arabia to guarantee its own commercial security. On the one hand, China continues to play the strategic partnership game with Iran. But on the other hand, it instantly accepts this golden platter offered by Riyadh to escape the Hormuz risk. This move severs China's logistical dependence on Iran like a knife. At the same time, it strengthens Saudi Arabia's hand in the Asian market in an unprecedented way. Chinese goods will no longer slow down under the threat of Iran's fast attack craft. Beijing prefers to bet on the winning horse in the Middle East. Right after this pragmatic move by Xi, we extend to the other massive leg of the route, Japan. Japan's industrial heart, the ports of Kubi, Nagoya, and Yokohama, will also now be directly connected to Saudi Arabia. We cannot grasp the magnitude of this geopolitical chess match without reading the Tokyo detail in the Pacific strategy. Especially Japan's massive strategic reserves of 16 million tons are an absolute checkmate factor in this game. For this reason, the Tokyo administration cannot leave its energy lines hanging by a thread in the face of rising tensions in the Pacific region. In a potential Asia-Pacific crisis, the only thing that will keep its industry alive is this uninterrupted energy flow. With this secure line they have established, the Saudis are taking a step aimed at ensuring Japan can safeguard these critical reserves. This move completely frees the Japanese industrial machine from Iran's threats and a possible blockade in Hormuz. On the European leg of the route, there are the ports of Southampton in the United Kingdom, Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and Hamburg in Germany. Thus, with this move by Saudi Arabia, not only Asia, but also Europe's heavy industry is completely isolated from Hormuz's crisis. Intercontinental trade is no longer shaped by the war drums that will emerge from between Thrawn's two lips. The European market welcomes this massive insurance policy in its supply chain with great satisfaction. So how does this enormous line announced by Saudi Arabia put pressure on Iran? Holding the world hostage for years with the threat of closing the Strait of Hormuz, Iran finds for the first time a Saudi Arabia that does not bow to blackmail. That old empire of fear which previously caused oil prices to skyrocket in every crisis is collapsing. This new maritime route flowing through the Red Sea directly eliminates the dependence on Hormuz. Global cargo and energy shipments are emerging from the shadow of Iran's fast attack craft. World trade finally reaches safe waters. Thanks to this line, Saudi Arabia completely distances itself and its allies from zones of geopolitical tension. Riyadh is transforming its country into a massive platform connecting three continents unaffected by crisis. In other words, this move turns Iran's biggest trump card, the "I will close the strait" threat, into a rusty and useless sword. That sword no longer has any cutting edge in global markets. However, the Riyadh administration never intended to settle for just conquering the seas. Saudi Arabia signed on to a much greater revolution by shaking hands with the world's largest container shipping company, MSC. This move by a giant power that steers global trade like MSC is the clearest message of confidence given to the markets. With this agreement, a second hybrid route that perfectly combines sea and land, completely bypassing Hormuz, was brought to life. This is a bold feat of engineering and a mind game rarely seen in logistics history. The flow of this new route is a complete logistics marvel that pushes boundaries. Under normal circumstances, ships going all the way around the Arabian Peninsula meant a dangerous journey lasting weeks. But now, a brand new system that bends time and space is in play. Cargo ships departing from Europe's meat ports enter directly into the warm waters of the Red Sea. Containers swiftly dock at Saudi Arabia's Jeddah and King Abdullah ports. Here, giant cranes and autonomous port systems work, racing against seconds. Exactly at this point, the land route phase of the system kicks in with massive momentum. This is no ordinary road transport. This is a colossal, high-security logistics corridor tracked instantly by satellites. Thousands of tons of cargo unloaded from ships are loaded onto giant truck fleets waiting on the highways. This land bridge of roughly 1,300 kilometers literally resets to zero the massive amount of time that would be lost at sea. European goods traverse the Saudi Arabian deserts from end to end like a caravan of steel without any disruption. They reach the city of Dam on the eastern coast of the country directly. The port in this city shines as the unshakable eastern fortress of this visionary strategy. The cargo arriving at the Dam port is transferred from here to small and fast feeder vessels. Subsequently, these ships distribute the cargo to the Gulf countries at an incredible speed. Particularly the United Arab Emirates and Upper Gulf ports take the lion's share of this flawless network. Thanks to this system, not even a single container touches the Hormuz waters under Iran's control before reaching its destination. So, what is being transported on this massive hybrid route? Although the system primarily focuses on container transport, energy products and cargo are also safely shipped. Everything from automotive parts to high-tech systems flows through this network in seconds. This project, the most concrete evidence of Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 goals, is permanently altering the Gulf's ill fate. The country's economy is breaking free from its absolute dependence on oil and turning into a global trade hub. For Iran, the meaning of this MSC route is a sleep-depriving geopolitical nightmare. The preference for this route by global logistics giants is rapidly evaporating Iran's strategic importance in the region. Tehran is left with merely watching its famous strait card, which it has relied on for years, slip through its fingers. The Iranian army, conducting exercises to close the strait, may now have to face empty waters with no ships behind them. Massive freighters might no longer get caught in the binoculars of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards because the Gulf countries, with this visionary move by Riyadh, are largely emerging from Iran's suffocating shadow. But the Saudis' plans to corner Iran do not stop there. In Riyadh's hands, there is a third very powerful and currently clockwork-running weapon that will thwart Iran's moves. The name of this major trump card is the massive east-west pipeline connecting the east of Saudi Arabia to its west, also known as Petroline. This pipeline is a strategic masterpiece that carries the country's lifeline entirely away from battlefields. This strategic pipeline carries the black gold extracted from the rich oil fields in the east of the country directly to the Red Sea coast. The oil reaches the safe port of Yanbu, opening directly to the world's oceans. This line is not just a pile of pipes buried underground. It is Saudi Arabia's impenetrable energy shield, woven from steel. This infrastructure, capable of reaching an astronomical capacity of 5 to 7 million barrels per day, is the market's greatest assurance. The most critical insurance for the global oil supply beats right inside these pipes. Millions of barrels of oil a day pass through this line far away from the Strait of Hormuz. Operated at full capacity during the severe Hormuz crisis in 2026, this colossal facility proved its worth to the entire world. Iran's mine threats and fast attack craft in the strait could never touch this river flowing under the desert. To protect this line, the Riyadh administration has masked the world's most advanced air and missile defense systems in the region. A potential Iranian missile will turn to ashes high in the sky before it can even reach this line. Energy-hungry giants like China can purchase Saudi oil directly from this pipeline via the Red Sea without taking the Iran risk. So as we can see, Riyadh is seeking to completely rid itself of Throne's threats in Hormuz. With these triple protection shield routes, when Petroline is combined with MSC's new route and the 9-port Jeddah connection, an insurmountable wall emerges. With this triple bypass strategy, Saudi Arabia is virtually imprisoning Iran flawlessly within its own region. However, Saudi Arabia is not the only player making a move in this grand Middle Eastern chess match. Other countries in the region are also advancing on this bright path paved by Riyadh. One by one, everyone is finding and building ways to break free from the shackles of Hormuz. Because no one wants to sacrifice their economy to the political calculations of the mullahs in Tehran. The United Arab Emirates is among the leading countries taking the fastest, most aggressive, and most determined steps in this regard. The UAE has built the massive ADCOP pipeline extending from the Habshan oil fields in Abu Dhabi to the port of Fujairah on the coast of the Gulf of Oman. The UAE government is sworn not to leave the security of its energy exports to the mercy of Iran. This roughly 380-kilometer pipeline feeds Fujairah, the world's third busiest refueling hub. Thanks to this strategic pipeline, the UAE can export all of its oil to the oceans without ever sending it through the Strait of Hormuz. Just like Saudi Arabia, the UAE ensures that giant Chinese companies make their oil purchases perfectly and away from risk. The Abu Dhabi administration has taken the fate of its own oil into its own hands. On the other hand, Iraq, just now getting back on its feet from the devastation of war, is also taking the stage as a very strong actor in this bypass race. The Iraqi administration is bringing the massive development road project to life, starting from the Grand FA port in Basra and extending all the way to Turkey. This project is not just a road, it is the Silk Road of the 21st century that will make Iraq a global player once again. This mega-budget $24 billion project connects the Gulf directly to the Mediterranean and the heart of Europe via Turkey. Iraqi oil and all goods coming from Asia completely sideline Hormuz with this new railway and highway network. Iraq, associated with civil wars for years, is now preparing to become the safe route for trade caravans. Turkey's strategic and unique position turns this northern corridor of Iraq into Europe's main gateway. A cargo loaded onto a train in Basra will be able to reach London continuously via Istanbul. European countries are supporting this project with all their might to no longer leave their energy and Asian goods to Iran's initiative. Countries like Kuwait, Qatar, and Bahrain, whose access to the sea is condemned to Hormuz, are not sitting idly by either. These countries are rapidly integrating into these massive new logistics networks established by Saudi Arabia and the UAE. These small but wealthy states, captives of geography for years, are finally finding alternative channels to breathe. In the Middle East, countries are now stepping out from the shadow of crisis actors beating war drums forever. The economic and commercial map of the region is being redrawn from scratch, not problem-oriented, but entirely solution-oriented. In conclusion, this logistics revolution launched under the leadership and courage of Saudi Arabia continues to astound the world. The Strait of Hormuz is no longer that old, dark, and frightening strait where they could hold the world's energy hostage. The Riyadh administration refused to use its geography as a weapon against its enemies. Instead, it chose to use Saudi Arabia as an invincible and unshakable bridge for world trade. This bridge is not an ordinary structure consisting merely of steel and asphalt. This is the manifesto of a new vision that writes the future of the Middle East, promising trade and prosperity instead of blood and war. Those dark waters remembered for years of endless conflicts, tanker crises, and mine ships may no longer be the same. The global economy could forever break free from Throne's endless cycle of threats. The expanding global network of the Port of Jeddah, MSC's borderless hybrid route, and the Petroline pipeline, a river of steel, are converging. These three massive moves relegate Iran's biggest tool of blackmail to the dusty and dark shelves of history forever. Iran is now left with only old, rusty, fast attack craft and empty threats that find no echo. Saudi Arabia is winning one of the greatest geopolitical victories of the century without firing a single bullet or sending a single soldier to the front. With other countries in the region joining this awakening trend, the Tehran administration is being dragged into a heavy and suffocating geopolitical isolation. The Strait of Hormuz, the greatest power in Thrawn's hands, is now slowly on the verge of drowning in its own waters. The once impenetrable fortress has today become a symbol of colossal loneliness. The Iranian economy will struggle to breathe inside this strategic circle that narrows with each passing day, because those who draw their power from crisis are doomed to be the biggest losers when the crisis is resolved. Today's new map of energy, borderless trade, and power is being reshaped with precisely such brilliant and massive moves. Now, when we look at this colossal chessboard, much larger questions waiting to be answered appear in minds. What dangerous and dark paths will Iran, left helpless in the face of this flawless logistics network established by Saudi Arabia, resort to in the future to protect its shaken influence in the region? Will the Tehran administration, having completely lost its greatest weapon, the Hormuz trump card, silently accept this heavy defeat? Or will it, with the reflexes of a cornered actor, field its proxy forces, missiles, and drones to sabotage these new unshakable security corridors connecting Asia and Europe? We are waiting for your comments. To make long journeys more enjoyable, we also welcome you to our Spotify, where we offer our video content. Thank you for choosing us. TGN presented.